Bad way to start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the world premiere of On The Go, part of Driving to the Top Productions. If you're familiar with this face, then you know who I am. I'm Marcus. You have seen me in the past from the Worldly Podcast to ATB Saints to Sportsmania Plus to once my former show on this network back in the day, SAT Sports. You may have seen me on some other stupid shows and other networks in the past too. But now I'm back on Driving to the Top Productions. You will be catching me on this show when I know there's an episode to drop. You'll also catch me on this show quite often with the UFL chat. We'll do it usually on Sundays. My Wrestle Talk with Rich on Mondays. And of course, the open mic on Tuesdays with the Drive to the Top crew. How you guys doing? Welcome to the world premiere of this new show. I'm Marcus. There you see right below my name. You can find me on Twitter, my personal at MarcusLee337, and this show on Twitter at OnTheGo_TXLA. And I thought, let's start this new journey on a hot note. We are just recapping the NFL draft. We're coming off an incredible weekend of the NFL draft in Green Bay. Great 3 days. I know you guys we're getting closer. It won't be long before football starts again, like real football, college football, the NFL, so forth. But how you guys doing? I'm excited to get this new journey rolling, and I thought let's start hot. Let's recap the 2025 NFL drafts. Now, how I'm going to do it on this, I'm going to mainly recap the first round picks. I'm going to break down the Saints picks, the Texans picks, and I'm also going to break down a couple of LSU players that were called up and some other big names that were not called in the first round. So what was it, like out of 257 names that were called over the weekend? There were some good ones that got called up, and we're not going to waste any time. So if you guys watched the first round this past Thursday, y'all know the number one overall pick, Cam Ward out of Miami, quarterback, went to the Tennessee Titans. The Browns did have the second pick, but they traded up. They traded with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we knew this guy was going to get called, but I know the Browns fans were not happy about it, but we'll get to more of that in a bit. But the Jacksonville Jaguars picked up one of the few names we were waiting to get called up, Travis Hunter, who plays defensive back and wide receiver from Colorado, the Heisman Trophy winner. He goes number 2 overall. He's going to Duval. He's going to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Third pick, the Giants get Abdul Carter, an edge rusher out of Penn State. Fourth pick, Patriots get Will Campbell, the first of 7 LSU players that got called up, offensive tackle. I'll break those other picks down. Cleveland Browns, who originally had the 5th pick, they get Mason Graham, defensive lineman out of Michigan. 6th pick, my guy, Ashton Jenney goes to the Raiders, running back out of Boise State. 7th pick, the Jets got Armand Mimbu, offensive tackle out of Missouri. The 9th pick, the Panthers get Tatoria McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. Saints get the 9th pick in the first round, and this was where we all thought we were going to get Shedeur Sanders because we knew we needed a quarterback. So if they don't get one in the first round, we would eventually get one later in the weekend. Well, they didn't go quarterback in the first round. They get offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas, which I was excited for. I had him going to the Texans in my mock draft because I thought they were going to go ahead and jump up and get a quarterback because we know Derek Carr is going to be out for the 2025 season due to an injury. And I know the other quarterbacks we have on the roster, we got Spencer Rattler, who they drafted last year from South Carolina. We still got Jake Hayner. And we also got Danucci, which I don't know how long he's going to last. Saints did get a quarterback. I will break it down later. But Kelvin Banks Jr., I thought this was a great pick because a few days ago, Ryan Remchek, who's been with the Saints for a long time, he announced his retirement from the NFL and playing football. So we needed to fill that gap. Yeah, they did drafted a couple tackles in the last couple of years, and Trevor Penning and Taliesin Fuaga. I feel like Trevor Penning's not doing it for us. Taliesin is a hell of a player. He's on like one side. So I feel like that's going to be the 2 tackles on the O-line right there. Taliesin and, of course, Kelvin Banks Jr., which he is a tremendous athlete at Texas. Bears got the 10th pick. They picked Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. The 11th pick, the 49ers got Mikael Williams, defensive end out of Georgia. The 12th pick, the Dallas Cowboys get Tyler Booker, an offensive guard out of Alabama. So he's the first tied to go. 13th pick, the Miami Dolphins get Kenneth Grant, a defensive tackle out of Michigan. I called this one. 14th pick, the Colts get Tyler Warren, a tight end from Penn State. I knew they needed a tight end, and I figured this would be the perfect guy for him. Him or Colston, but I predicted he would go to this team. Falcons get Jalen Walker, a linebacker from Georgia, so he's staying in the state. I know there's a lot of dog lovers in Atlanta, and you got one of your guys playing for the Dirty Birds. Cardinals get Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. 17th pick, the Bengals get Shamar Stewart, an edge rusher from Texas A&M. The 18th pick, the Seahawks get Gray Zabel, an offensive guard from North Dakota State. I think he became the third Bison to go in the first round in program history. The 19th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get Emeka Egbuka, a wide receiver from Ohio State. Broncos with the 20th pick got Jahdae Barron, a cornerback from Texas. The 21st pick, this is where I thought the Steelers probably were going to get a quarterback. Maybe like a Jackson Dart or something. No, they go defense. They get Derek Harmon, a defensive tackle out of Oregon. I like this pick here. They needed a running back. Chargers with the 22nd pick got Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. So there's a man in behind Justin Herbert that's going to be the ball carrier for the Chargers. They needed a running back. Packers got a good pick here. They got Matthew Golden, a wide receiver out of Texas. So another target for Jordan Love. The Vikings with the 24th pick, they get Donovan Jackson, an offensive guard out of Ohio State. This would be our second trade in the first round. The Texans originally had the 25th pick, but they traded up with the Giants, and Texans didn't get their first pick until the second round. But this is where the Giants started to try and make some issues. They get Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. So that puts now with the Giants, besides him, I know Jameis Winston's in with the Giants. Russell Wilson might be with the Giants too. Whatever the quarterback situation is for the football Giants, I think Jackson Dart's your guy, and I wouldn't be surprised how good this team could be later in the season because there's a couple other picks the Giants made I'm going to bring up that happened outside the first round. 26th pick, the Falcons had a second pick. They get James Pierce Jr., defensive end out of Tennessee. This was a trade by the LA Rams, so the Falcons had a second pick. I like this one here. For the 27th pick, the Baltimore Ravens got Malachi Starks, a defensive back out of Georgia. Ravens needed some DBs, and they got one. The Detroit Lions get Tyleik Williams in the 28th pick, a defensive tackle from Ohio State. In the 29th pick, the Washington Commanders get Josh Connerly Jr., an offensive tackle out of Oregon, so that's some good protection for Jaden Daniels. The 30th pick, the Buffalo Bills get Kentucky's Maxwell Hairston, which is a cornerback. They needed one. This I didn't get here. The Chiefs were supposed to get the 31st pick, and the Eagles were going to get the final pick, but they traded. They just basically swapped. They just went down. The Eagles went up. Eagles picked up another SEC defensive player. They get Jihad Campbell, a linebacker out of Alabama. So I think 8 or 9 players on their defense either is from Alabama or is from Georgia. Philly's about to become an SEC territory with these dogs in the Crimson Tide. And then the final pick in the first round, I don't know if it was because of injury or they were just didn't believe in this guy. The Kansas City Chiefs get offensive tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I know he had some injury issues and people were not calling his name, but he got the final pick in the first round, courtesy of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, outside of the teams I'm covering, here were a couple of other big known names in the draft that got called later and over the weekend. The New England Patriots picked up a running back, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Trey Harris from Ole Miss is going to the Chargers. He was the 55th pick. This one made me so happy after what this family been through since the start of 2025. The Besh family, Jack Besh, a former LSU Tiger, transferred to TCU. He gets called up, the 58th pick, to go play wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I was so happy for him. Mike Green, who people thought was going to be a first-round prospect, he goes 58th overall in the second round to the Baltimore Ravens, which is a good pick. Steelers pick up Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Packers get Savion Williams from TCU. Speaking one particular college football team I'm going to cover this year, Tulane actually had 2 players drafted over the weekend. The first one was Caleb Ransall, who's a defensive back. He's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so he could be playing in the backfield with Travis Hunter. This was kind of a shocker here. This was considered a trade, but the Seattle Seahawks picked up Jalen Milroe, a quarterback out of Alabama. Now, remember, they also got Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold left Minnesota. He's now with the Seahawks. So how's this going to play? I think Jalen Milroe, who I thought was going to go to the Saints at one point if they wasn't going to get Shadir, this is going to be a quarterback duo right there. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Milroe becomes QB1, but with Sam Darnold at Seattle, that's going to be a battle right there. Speaking of quarterbacks, the Cleveland Browns called one of their 2 quarterbacks. They call up Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, which was putting Shadir Sanders down the list. Like, we didn't know if he was going to get his name called or not. Well, the Browns picked up Dylan Gabriel in the 94th pick. I think by this time they were in the 3rd round. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, he gets called up to the Falcons. Safety there. Giants, I like this one. Cam Scatabo, the running back from Arizona State, 105th pick. So the Giants, I think, are trying to be cooking with an offense. You got Jackson Dart. You got Cam Scatabo. I mean, you drafted Malik Neighbors a year ago. I feel like the Giants could be making some changes here. Hopefully they could be a playoff contender. Then this one was good here. I was waiting for his guy to get called up. The younger brother of Travis Etienne, who's from Jennings, Louisiana, not far from me. Trevor Etienne, the former Florida Gator running back who transferred to Georgia. He gets called up, 114th pick to the Carolina Panthers. So now he's going to go playing with Bryce Young and company. And McMillan, who got called up in the 1st round. Malachi Moore from Alabama going to the Jets. And this is where the time stood still. The Browns got another quarterback, and sure enough, they draft in the 4th round, 144th pick, Shadir Sanders from Colorado, the guy who just got his jersey retired with controversy of being 0-2 in bowl games, had a 12-13 record, 4,000 passing yards with one of the worst linemen, not just in the Big 12, but with all of college football, and with 9 or 10 sacks last season. Yeah, we've been clowning this guy. But let's see if he can turn some heads here. I know he's been the laughing stock over the weekend on social media, especially with his dad. But I wouldn't be surprised if Shadir Sanders could turn this team around. But look at the quarterbacks they got. Like, they also just drafted Dylan Gabriel. Kenny Pickett is still with them. They still got Deshaun Watson. I'm missing another quarterback. Like, they got 5 quarterbacks right now. I feel like they still got Joe Flacco. That's the other guy. Let's see. With the issues with Deshaun Watson, I don't know if they're going to still keep him or let him go. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade like Kenny Pickett. Work a trade there. Joe Flacco, I know his days are numbered. He could end up retiring soon. But that's going to be a hell of a quarterback battle. Dylan Gabriel and Shadir Sanders try and see who can be QB1. That's something. I can't wait to find out who will be QB1 for the Cleveland Browns at the start of that season. Kyle McCord, who I thought was going to get drafted before Shadir Sanders, the quarterback out of Syracuse, he goes to the Eagles. So Jalen Hurts got some backup in Kyle McCord. Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, he gets called up to the Indianapolis Colts. So Anthony Richardson got a backup. Quinn Ewers from Texas, 231st pick to the Miami Dolphins. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy gets the starting job with all the concussion protocols that Tua's gotten lately. And I feel like if he gets another concussion, he might as well retire. And then you got Quinn Ewers. Micah Robinson from Tulane, that's the second guy from the Green Wave. They get called up. He's going to the Green Bay Packers at defensive back. And Mr. Irrelevant went to Kobe Minor, a defensive back from Memphis. He was the final pick. He's going to the New England Patriots. That's just a couple of names right there to throw. Now, out of all the 257 players I got called up, look at these numbers here. The SEC had a total of 79 players drafted this weekend. Georgia with the most players in the SEC. Not far behind is Texas with 12. Ole Miss had 8. LSU tied with Alabama and Florida with 7 players. South Carolina with 5, Tennessee with 4, A&M and Auburn and Missouri with 3, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Arkansas with 2, and Vandy with 1. The Big Ten was the runner-up with the most players drafted with 71, but Ohio State had the most players drafted than any other school this weekend with 14. Oregon had 10, Michigan 7, Penn State had 5, along with UCLA and Iowa, just to name a few there. The ACC, Miami led that with 7, Virginia Tech not far behind with 5. Clemson had 3, Louisville had 3. Big 12, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona, and Oklahoma State at a 4-way tie with the most with 4 picks. TCU had 2 with UCF, Texas Tech, and Kansas. Kansas State had 3. That's just to name a few. Notre Dame with 6 as an independent. Boise State with 2, the most in the Mountain West. Tulane had 2. So basically, it was LSU and Tulane, the only 2 teams in the state that had players drafted. No one from UL Lafayette, no one from UL Monroe, Louisiana Tech, Grambling Southern, or anybody in the FCS. Nope, just them 2 stood tall. That's just a few names right there of teams that led it. But speaking of LSU, since I'll be talking a lot of LSU on this show, like I said, 7 players were called up in the NFL draft. These 7 add up to a total of 391 LSU Tigers getting called up to the NFL. And it started with Will Campbell, like I said, big offensive lineman, a kid from Monroe. He went to Neville, played for the Neville Tigers. Great, humble kid. He was awarded number 7, even though he was an offensive tackle. He couldn't wear 7, so he had the 7 patch on his jersey. I think he's going to be great for Drake May to protect his blind side. Probably one of our best tight ends we've had in a long time, Mason Taylor. Following in his dad's footsteps, he's going to the New York Jets. He was the 42nd pick. The same guy that caught the winning touchdown against Alabama in 2022 to knock them out of the college football playoff picture. And I was there in attendance, one of the greatest moments of my life in Tiger Stadium. There were 2 third-round picks for LSU getting called up. Emory Jones Jr. going to the Baltimore Ravens as an offensive tackle, 91st pick, so he can go protect Lamar Jackson. Also in the 3rd round, 10 picks later, Savion Jones, who is an edge rusher, he's going to the Denver Broncos to go play for Sean Payton and them. There were 2 Tigers going in the 5th round. Braden Swinson, who was a defensive end, he will be joining Will Campbell, and he's going to play in New England. He was the 146th pick. I was waiting for this guy to get called up. Miles Frazier, who was an offensive guard, he will be going to Detroit to go block and protect Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. And in the 7th round, Garrett Dellinger, who was the 243rd pick, he will also be going to Baltimore with Emory Jones Jr., and he will be going as an offensive guard. And unfortunately, during sad times in the last couple of weeks, LSU would have had 8 players called up, maybe 2 in the 1st round, if what happened didn't happen over the weekend with Kyron Lacey passing away. And that would have been special. We could have heard his name get called up. We would have had 2 Tigers in the 1st round and 8 total, and 392 total Tigers in the NFL overall. But it is what it is. I mean, I hate to say it like that. But on to a good note, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints, one of 2 NFL teams I'm going to be covering on this show. The Saints had a total of, I think it was 9 players they put on their campaign. It started in the 1st round. They got their offensive tackle to replace Ryan Ramczyk, Kelvin Banks Jr. This guy's a workhorse. I've seen what he's done at Texas. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for this O-line. The 2nd round, we got our quarterback. But I kept thinking like it was going to be maybe like a Shadir Sanders or a Jackson Dart or even a Jalen Milroe. I didn't think of Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck came in from Louisville. He started his career, I think, at Texas Tech. Entered the transfer portal, I think went to Wazoo. Then he ended his career with Louisville. I think he's going to be a perfect fit. I mean, at Louisville, he had a 63% completion of his passes, over 7,000 passing yards and 59 touchdowns with the Cardinals. They're getting drafted. I can definitely see him being the starting quarterback for this upcoming season. But with Carr coming back in the future, I don't know if they're going to put Carr back as QB1 or if they end up working a trade. I'm hearing the rumors about Carr possibly going to Pittsburgh, or he might as well hang it up. I don't know how old he really is, but he's getting there. I think they had him as one of the oldest outside of Aaron Rodgers and even Russell Wilson as the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL. Third round, Saints got 2 picks. They get Vernon Broughton, who is a defensive end out of Texas. So just like Kelvin Banks Jr., he's coming as well to the black and gold. I got no numbers for him, but I got numbers on this guy. They also had another 3rd pick. The 93rd pick, they get safety Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. During his time with the Cavs, he had 176 total tackles, 17 pass deflections, and 5 fumble recoveries with Virginia. Then we go into the final day. I really like this pick here. In the 4th round, the 112th pick, they get Danny Stutzman, a linebacker from Oklahoma. So we got another linebacker who could be joining with the likes of Demario Davis. 184 solo tackles, 37 tackles for a loss, and 8 sacks with the Sooners. Also in the 4th round, they pick up a cornerback in Quincy Riley out of Louisville, the 131st pick. He had 112 solo tackles, 15 interceptions, and 40 passes defended with the Cardinals. So that's 2 Louisville Cardinals we pick up in Tyler Shuck and Quincy Riley. We get a running back. I know we got a good list of running backs with Alvin Kamara, Clyde Edward Banks, DeAndre Miller, and so forth. But we also pick up Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. He was the 184th pick. He had 49 rushing touchdowns. He had over 4,000 rushing yards, and he rushing yards, 5.7 rushing yards per attempt. So that's not bad numbers. I actually like this pick. I mean, with how many years Alvin Kamara got left in him, I mean, Devin Neal could be like a guy we could see his name get called up, being the ball carrier with rushing touchdowns and everything. And then they had 2 final picks in the 7th round. They get a tight end out of UCLA, Moliki Matavo. He was the 248th pick. He had 74 receptions, 2 yards shy from 1,000 receiving yards at UCLA, and 6 receiving touchdowns. And then finally, they get in the 7th round the 254th pick, Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse, who is an edge rusher. He had 33 tackles for a loss with Syracuse, 120 combined tackles, and 15.5 sacks. That's good numbers right there. I could probably see him being on the starting defensive line there. And that's the Saints picks. And now we look at the Houston Texans, another team I'll be covering on this show. I think they also had 9 picks. Yeah, 9 picks. They had a 1st-round pick, but traded, so they ended up getting 2 second-round picks. The first guy they call up, one of 4. They might as well call themselves the Houston Jaylens. They drafted not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Jaylens on this team. The first they call up out of Iowa State, Jaden Higgins, 34th pick. He's a wide receiver. I really liked this pick. He was a 3rd-team All-American last season, 2nd-team All-Big 12 wide receiver and Associate Press. He finished among the school's single-season leaders with over 1,000 receiving yards, 1,183 to be exact. He was 2nd in receptions with Iowa State with 87, and he had 9 total touchdowns as a Cyclone in this one. Also in the 2nd round, the 48th pick, they get offensive tackle Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. He did start the final 38 games of his career. He was 1st-team All Big Ten, and last year he blocked for an offense that averaged 26.15 points per game and 115.6 rushing yards in there. Yards per goal. 3rd round, they had 2 third-round picks. This is where the Jaylens keep coming. They get another Jaden from Iowa State, and Jalen Knoll, he was the 79th pick, who's also a wide receiver. Big 12 Co-Special Teams Player of the Year in 2024, 1st-team All Big 12, kick and punt returner for 2024. He was posted as one of the best receiving seasons in school history. He finished with 1,194 receiving yards, 85 receptions, and 8 total touchdowns. And the other Jalen, we got Jalen Smith, who is a defensive back out of USC. He was the 97th pick. He played in 43 games, including 32 starts with USC. In his 4-year career, he recorded 182 tackles, 12.5 tackles for a loss, 5 PDs, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 sacks. So Houston trying to cook here on defense. And speaking of USC, they ended up also drafting Jalen Smith's roommate, Woody Marks. These 2 were roommates at USC. With the 116th pick, they got another running back. He recorded at least 1 reception in the first 56 games of his collegiate career. In his 5-year career, he did play 4 years at Mississippi State and then ended transferring to USC. He recorded 608 carries, 31 rushing touchdowns, over 3,000 rushing yards, 261 receptions, 5 receiving touchdowns, and 1,500 receiving yards. So this could be a guy's name we're going to be calling a lot. I could see this guy be a starting running back for the Houston Texans behind C.J. Stroud. And then finally, the final Jalen they drafted. This would be the 4th and final one. In the 5th round, 187th pick, they get Jalen Reed out of Penn State, who is a safety. He did play in 50 games. He started 29 out of 50 at Penn State. He started all 16 games at safety in 2024. He made 98 tackles, 6.5 tackles for a loss, 6 points deferred, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 1 touchdown, and 2.5 sacks with the Nittany Lions. 6th round, they did get a backup quarterback for CJ. They get Graham Mertz out of Florida. He was the 197th pick. 48 games, total career games. He started his career at Wisconsin. Started 32 games with Wisconsin and entered the transfer portal and played 16 games as a Florida Gator. He threw a touchdown in 31 of his last 35 career starts, and he completed 72 of 94 for 791 passing yards, 6 touchdown passes, and 1 rushing touchdown in 2024. So that's some good numbers, I think, for Graham Mertz. And then the Texans had 2 final picks in the 7th round. They get defensive tackle Keontae Hamilton out of Rutgers, the 224th pick. This guy played in 51 games with 31 starts on the defensive line. He saw action as a defensive tackle and defensive end in every game since debuting in the season opener as a true freshman. Total 110 tackles, 11 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, 2 PDs, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery with Rutgers. And then finally, the final man to get called up for the Texans at 255th, they get Luke, if I'm saying it right, Luke Lachey, a tight end from Iowa. He started 24 games as a tight end for the Hawkeyes. He was the permanent team captain, and in 2024, he had 28 receptions for 231 yards for the Houston Texans. And that's about all I got for this NFL draft. If I had to put a grade, let's break it down here. If I'm grading the first round I thought was pretty decent. If I had to grade the Saints and the Texans picks, for the Saints, I will grade their draft class about a B. I like it. I'm not going to complain about anybody they picked up. I didn't throw hissy fits on social media or nothing like that. I feel like maybe the Houston Texans did a little better. I think I give the Houston Texans about a B+. I'm not giving nobody an A, but I'll give the Texans the highest grade over the Saints. I feel like they went to the playoffs last year. I think they can get forward of trying to get close to a first Super Bowl appearance and a Super Bowl title. The New Orleans Saints, I feel like they're still in that rebuilding mode. We don't even know what the quarterback situation is going to be in the near future with Derek Carr coming back from being fully healthy, and you got Tyler Shuck, who they just drafted. So we don't even know who's going to be the QB1 after the 2025 season. But I still got some faith in the New Orleans Saints, and I can see things are going to get better. I know we're already still rebuilding. We just got a new coach, Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator from the Eagles, who won a Super Bowl. I believe they can be a solid team, and we're going to find out more about that when it comes, because mark your calendars. They announced it over the weekend that May 14th, they will reveal the 2025 NFL schedules, and that will be a future episode I will drop on this show, where I will reveal not just the schedule for the Saints, the schedule for the Texans, and the primetime and international and holiday schedule. So you'll know who's going to be playing Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, playing in London, playing in Germany, playing in whatever other country they're going to, including Thanksgiving games, Christmas games, and so forth. Black Friday game. That's another holiday game they added. Mark your calendars. I might do it that same day, or I might do it the day after, but that's going to be an episode coming down the road in the month of May. Well, with that being said, that's all I got on the NFL draft. I was going to keep this episode short and sweet. So before I wrap it up, I'm just going to give you a little summary of how this show is going to work. I am going to be covering basically these teams you see on this map, starting in the 713, one of the area codes in Houston. I will be covering 6 different teams in Houston. You'll mainly hear me talk definitely about the Houston Astros, which I don't want to talk about their loss with the Royals recently. I'll be talking Astros, the Houston Texans, the Houston Rockets, which, by the way, they're in the NBA playoffs right now in a series with the Golden State Warriors. They did lose yesterday, so I think the series, Golden State's up 2-1. I said the Rockets would have won this in 6, but we got to see how things are going to go with Game 5 coming tomorrow, actually, Monday night at 9 p.m. in San Francisco. If they can't win Game 5, it might be over for them in 6. I'm also going to be talking UH, the University of Houston, mainly in football and basketball. I know basketball had a magical season. They went back to the Final Four, went to their first national championship since the 80s. Even though they did not get it done, I feel like this team could go back to the Final Four next year. Maybe another national title appearance. They got some players coming back. I know they picked up a player who's being transferred from Creighton. So I feel like UH is going to be a better team next year. I'm also going to be covering the Houston Dynamo, which I am shocked. The Houston Dynamo beat their rivals last night. They beat Austin FC 2-0. Got their second win of the season. I know they're not where they want to be right now. I know if you look at the table, the Houston Dynamo is 2-4 right now in the Western Conference of MLS. They got a rough May schedule ahead of them. They go to LAFC next Saturday. In 2 weeks, I'll be there. I'm going to Houston to watch them play the Seattle Sounders. They got Minnesota at home. They go to Dallas. They go to San Jose. And they go to NYCFC all in the month of May. Plus, they're playing a round of 32 matchup with Phoenix. They got 8 matchups in the month of May. And then finally from Houston, I don't have really a lot of positivity to say about this team, but the Houston Roughnecks, when we get to the UFL season that we're currently in right now, I know the Roughnecks are 1-3. They got 1 win back in week 3 over the Memphis Showboats. They have a chance to win today. Matter of fact, in half an hour, they will be kicking off in San Antonio against the Brahmas on ESPN. I might check it out while I'm watching Talladega and watching some college baseball and LSU. I'll also be covering the Houston Roughnecks, but I'll be doing most of that talking when we do our UFL show every week right here on Driving to the Top with myself and Adam, Jamie, Evan, Jeremy, anybody else that covers the team in Driving to the Top Productions for the UFL. You'll see us every week. Now we go from the 713, we cross the 409, we go into my neck of the woods, the 337, the next 2 college teams you see right here. Where I'm from, we're on the cusp. We're on that borderline between McNeese and the Raging Cajuns, Louisiana Lafayette, UL Lafayette, ULL, University of Louisiana, whatever you want to call it. McNeese, I'm mainly going to focus on football and basketball. I might cover a little bit of McNeese baseball. I don't watch a lot of it. For Raging Cajuns, I'm mainly going to cover football, maybe baseball too. I know these 2 teams are going to meet week 2 in college football at used to be Cajun Field. Now it's Our Lady of Lourdes Stadium. So that's going to be fun. But going down I-10, one team you will definitely hear me talk about more than anybody else on this map, LSU, my school, my college, my first love in sports. I'm going to be talking mainly all LSU, football, basketball, baseball, softball. I'll even talk gymnastics if I got to. I know LSU just came out. I was at the Tennessee game last night. Wasn't the prettiest game I've ever saw. They got a chance to win that series today. They have a chance to try and make some noise and get to Hoover, win the SEC tournament, get to hosting a regional, try and go back to Omaha and win another national championship. And then we cross out of the 337, 225. I put 905 in there, but there's no one in home I cover. I just put area codes in my region. But New Orleans, the 504, maybe they're going to focus on the New Orleans Saints. I'm also going to talk to the New Orleans Pelicans because I still got love for them, even though we're coming off one of the worst maybe seasons in franchise history. But I had to put a third team in New Orleans. I'm not going to put the University of New Orleans. I don't really watch them enough to care. I'll put Tulane in there. I'm going to talk mainly Tulane football only because I don't keep up with Tulane in basketball. They're not that good. Baseball, they're not that good. They did have a couple magical seasons in football. Remember, they beat Caleb Williams in the Cotton Bowl a couple years ago. They beat the Heisman Trophy winner. And they're still considered a rival, but LSU and Tulane hasn't played for the Rags since 2009. So that rivalry's been dead. So I think it's okay to throw Tulane in there. So as you see these following teams on this map, I'm not quoting Nate Dogg and Ludacris, but I'm going to say it in a friendly, family matter way. I got teams in different area codes. That might be the tagline of this show. Because, you see them area codes on that logo. I'm mainly going to cover 713, 337, 225, and the 504, but I had to throw 318 North Louisiana, which when we get to football season, whether if it's Magnesia or the Raging Cajuns playing teams up there in Tulane, you'll be hearing some of them teams. 409 as well, which is in the Beaumont, Southeast Texas area. Magnesia got a few conference teams in Southeast Texas you'll hear about. But like I said, you're mainly going to hear the 713, which is Houston, 337, Southwest Louisiana, 225, Greater Baton Rouge, and 504, the Greater New Orleans area. But that's about a prime example of what you're going to see on this show. I don't have a fully weekly scheduled basis. I'm just going to pop in when I'm ready to do an episode or if there's something I want to talk about. So you never know. I could pop on once a week, twice a week. You never know. I could pop on every day if I want, but that's not going to happen. But the next episode, I will keep you updated on Twitter. I know my personal Twitter is private, but if I have episode updates, I have the On The Go Twitter page on the handle right there. Again, follow it at @OnTheGo_TXLA. That's gonna be what you want to follow if you want to know upcoming episodes and dates and times and whatnot. You'll get all that stuff on that Twitter. Instead of my personal Twitter, I'm just gonna use mine to retweet it. But anything you want to know about this show, with episodes or upcoming shows, I'm even going to bring guests on in the future. Like I might bring on some coaches, former players, athletes, other podcasters. We might do some crossover shows when we get to football season. I know if the Saints are playing a team that got a member of Driving to the Top Productions on, I'm going to invite them on. We'll do a crossover episode where we talk about our teams, latest games, upcoming games. We'll do predictions for that game, a score prediction. Even during football season, I'm going to also throw in predictions for all the other NFL and some of the top college football matchups, but I won't break those down. I'm just going to have a straight pick. I'm only going to break down LSU only, or maybe a potential game of the week. But like I said, any of these teams on that screen, I'm breaking those teams down no matter what. Anybody else? Most likely not. But thank you guys for joining me on this premiere debut episode of On The Go on Driving to the Top Productions. Again, right below me, you can find me on social media. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I don't have the handles there. But just type in Marcus Hay on Facebook or Instagram. But that's my Twitter, personal Twitter at MarcusLee337 again. And of course, On The Go, this show is on Twitter at OnTheGo_TXLA. Go spelled Geaux, Louisiana style. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. This was a success. This has been a long time coming. I know I've announced that I was bringing a show back, and I'm not going anywhere. This show ain't going nowhere. This is the start of something big I plan to keep on doing for years and years to come with the experience I have with podcasting or even doing live streams. This will only be video live streaming only, no audio needed. So you ain't going to find this show on all audio platforms. You can only find it on YouTube. You can find it on my personal YouTube, Driving to the Top's YouTube, on our Twitter pages, or even other people, even on Twitch. Find it on Twitch as well. But thank you guys. God bless y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. This start of something special. I'm looking forward to episode 2 coming soon, and I will keep you updated on that. But until then, you guys enjoy y'all Sunday, and y'all have a good one.